Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Carolyn Alvo, and I'm here to talk to you about sleep. It's that wonderful thing that we all love, but we can't seem to get enough of. Just a quick little bit about me. I am a migraine health coach. I came down this career path, like many of you. I used to be a chronic migraine sufferer. I had migraines pretty intensely and pretty regularly for the better part of 13, 14 years. And it really, after trying tons of medications and going to tons of doctors, really wasn't until I addressed my food and lifestyle that I was able to make significant changes. So now I've decided to make this my career and help others kind of go through the same transformation. I've done a few of these, and today I'm really excited to talk about sleep because it's just so important to our overall health and to our migraine health. So just while people are joining, I'll tell you a little bit about how I kind of had this aha moment after I had my daughter. She's now 15 months old. But she started to be a really good sleeper at the 3-month mark. And I had this epiphany because I had this ritual for her as she went to bed. And she, we would eat dinner at the same time every night and try to make it a nice, calm, relaxing experience. And then we'd read her a book or give her a bath, and then change her and probably rock her to sleep to some relaxing music. And she would sleep through the night really well and kind of wake up at the same day every single day. And I realized, I was like, why did we start doing this? When did the transition happen, from when we were children to when we were adults, that we stopped implementing these really great habits? So now that's what I kind of was inspired by that, and that's really what I now tell my clients is kind of what, just these ideas that I thought around how to I call them how to sleep like a baby, and it's really around these 8 tips. Before going forward, I'll say just because given sleep is such a huge topic, and even we can go a million different directions with this, I won't talk about really going into what are the factors into why you're not sleeping enough or you have poor quality sleep. I think that's really kind of individual to each individual person. I just, stress is obviously such a huge theme in this category, and there's a million different ways we can address that. So I want to leave that for another talk. And then also as someone who has migraines and suffered pretty chronically with them, I know migraines can be a huge sleep disruptor. Not only when you have an episode, sometimes even though all you want to do is lay in bed and go to sleep so you don't feel the misery of the pain. I know there were many nights where I just lay there awake because the pain was so intense. And then I know that some medications, my go-to Excedrin migraine, would actually keep me up because, even if it was working, it prevented me from sleeping because of the caffeine in it. I know that may be the same, for other medications out there. So, I'm not going to go into those things. I just want to put that aside and just focus on the things that we can control. And hopefully these are kind of easy to implement, but doable to implement tips that you can start in your day-to-day if this is something that you're struggling with. And I would love to hear from you guys in the comments section, if you guys have some sleep suggestions or tips that have really helped you with sleep, or if any questions come up, please write that in the comments. I see Annette has already said hello. Hi, Annette. So I've kind of split up my tips into 2 different categories. One is what I call it's 4 tips. It's your foundation, your foundational pieces, and then the second section is what what I call your daily habits. So we'll dig into those in just a second. One last point before doing that, though, I really want to talk about why. Sleep is obviously important for anybody's overall health, but why, as a migraine sufferer, is sleep so important? And without getting too sciencey into it, I'll just keep it really simple and say that there's a part of our brains that's called the hypothalamus, where doctors believe that migraines originate from and are triggered from. This part of the brain is super important. It's in charge of a bunch of different mechanisms in the body, and one of which, it's in charge of our stress response, hormone, like releasing hormones, and it's also in charge of regulating our sleep. So basically what I tell people is that you want to keep the hypothalamus as happy as possible. So you want to really, really, if migraines are really, if you're really suffering from migraines, you really want to make sure that you're keeping your hypothalamus as happy as possible. And a key part of that is to make sure you're going to get good sleep. And we'll talk about that in the tips that I'm going to go over with you. So first of all, what is good sleep? Good sleep for most adults is between 7 to 8 hours, probably more like 8. And so if you're getting a lot less than that, or if your quality of sleep is really not good, I hope this really helps you. And like I said, please chime in with any other tips. There's so many out there, but I'm just going to try to boil it down to a few here and hope to spark a conversation with you guys. So let's first talk about the foundational piece, the first 4 pieces that I would say like anybody should tackle first in order to create a great environment for sleep. So the first, which again, highly inspired by my daughter, is to declare your bedtime. Most of us are really good at knowing when we have to get up, whether that's for work or for school, and we'll set an alarm or 2, and we, even if we snooze a few times, like we're pretty diligent about getting up and getting out the door for our wake up time. But what if we were as strict about our bedtime, knowing that we have to get 8 hours of sleep? So if you have to wake up, at a certain time, you just do the math and you say, okay, I'm gonna have to be in bed, I have to be sleeping by this time. And then you build the rest of the day, the rest of the 16 hours of the day that you're awake around that. It's a really simple thing, but it is just something that I know a lot of people don't do. But you really kind of have to treat sleep like a scheduled meeting almost. And it's a scheduled meeting that you're just having with yourself, and it is for your, it's just for your overall health, but it's so important. I feel like if we don't schedule these things, then we can kind of let the other things in our day, just push them aside. So declaring your bedtime, again, it's super important. We're really good about doing this with our kids. We're not good at doing this once we're adults for some reason. Let me know what you guys think about that, if anybody does it, because I think that was a really valuable one for me in terms of being able to plan out my day and knowing, okay, if I have to go to bed at a certain time, if I have to be asleep at a certain time, that means I have to be in bed at least a half an hour before to wind down, and that means I have to eat dinner, and you kind of go backwards like that. The second tip is to establish consistent bed and wake time. So that means going to bed and waking up at the same time every single day. And I know you may thinking like, no, I would love to catch up on my sleep on the weekend. Like, no, thank you. I do not want to wake up early. And I challenge you on this because, again, in order to keep the hypothalamus happy, it really, really loves consistency. So I really just want to encourage you, even on the weekends, as tempting as it would be to sleep in, there's no way you can catch up. It's not like if you get 6 hours of sleep every single night during the week, and you can't like sleep 12 hours on Saturday and Sunday and just hope to make up for it. It doesn't really work like that, and it really throws the hypothalamus off. So what you really just want to do is just shoot for that 7-8 hours every single night. And if that means getting up, at 7 a.m. also on Saturday and Sunday, then just to make it a little bit more exciting, like find a really fun activity that's going to make you excited to get out of bed. Maybe it's a yoga class, maybe it's a brunch date with a friend, whatever it may be. Like, I would really encourage you. It's really important to get as consistent amount of sleep as possible. The third tip is to create a dark, quiet, optimal sleep space. So that means that a few things. So obviously, temperature is really important. Everybody's a little bit different on this, but studies have shown that the optimal temperature is kind of between 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So that anything hotter kind of disrupts sleep, and anything a lot colder can also disrupt sleep. Also, just obviously investing in a comfortable mattress, sheets, pillows that are right for you to make the bed as comfortable as possible. And then making sure you also are, triggering letting your body know that it's time for bed by wearing like sleep clothes. Don't go to sleep in like your gym clothes or something like that. It's sending the wrong the wrong message. Just seeing a few comments come in. Oh, Samantha, I'm so sorry you get them. Migraines constantly. And Cheryl, I hope I pronounced that right. Yes, that definitely could explain why you're talking about because you're oversleeping on the weekends. That could absolutely be a huge migraine trigger. It definitely was for me. I was always, so excited to get through the week, and then I always felt like I hit the weekend and I was like, oh my God, I just want to enjoy my weekend, and why do I always have migraines? And I think that was a huge trigger for me. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And so maybe this is a tip that you can implement and see some changes. Keith, blackout curtains. Yes, for light, definitely. Investing in some blackout curtains are so important to keeping a nice dark room. Making sure you're not disrupted by light is so important. So thanks for that. So I just want to round out the foundational piece with the one last tip, which is to learn to say no. Given all what we just talked about, but especially in declaring your bedtime and calculating and making sure you're getting enough sleep, you may have to start saying no to a lot of things. And I know that just sounds like a total buzzkill, but it is so important. If your friends are constantly planning stuff late at night or at a bar, or if things at work are gonna go from happy hour to a late dinner, you might just have to start saying no and creating some boundaries. And I know I might sound like I'm trying to eliminate your social life, but try to propose within your boundaries some great ideas that that work for you. So if your friends go out late, just say like, hey, can we go on like a walking date in the park at 8 a.m. or something on the weekend instead of going out late on Friday night. Just be creative with it, but I think people really respect once you establish boundaries. And so you just have to, you can't expect to like change your migraine life without changing some fundamentally big things in your life. So I would encourage you to just kind of take stock of what it is that you're doing socially or work-wise and see what you can cut out and adjust and make it move around within your schedule. So just want to look a little bit more at the comments before moving on. Annette, I definitely had really bad migraines that I couldn't drive my car, for sure. I'm sure a lot of people listening can definitely relate to you. Amanda, you get 2 or 3 a week. Well, I hope some of these tips can help. If you have any questions, definitely reach out. And I see that you're using essential oils, and that's really great. I'll talk a little bit about that just a little bit later on. So I'm glad you brought that up. So just to recap on the foundational pieces here for sleep, again, it's declare your bedtime, establish consistent bed and wake times. Number 3, create a dark, quiet, optimal sleep space. And number 4, learn to say no. So hopefully that can be helpful to some of you. Alexandra, you have such a hard time winding down at night. I'm so glad you asked, because that's coming up next. So like I said, the second part is really talking about daily habits. And so once you have the foundation down, what are some things that you can do on a day-to-day basis that really can enhance and put you in a deep sleep once you've made it kind of enough time and the right environment for sleep. So this is what some of you have alluded to already, but I'll start with a few things. It's around food and drink. So the first one is avoid caffeine and alcohol. This is probably not a huge surprise. Most people know not to drink coffee at night because it's probably going to keep them wired and awake, but I would really, depending on how sensitive you are, I would really be cautious with this, and I would say no caffeine after 2 p.m. You just don't want anything to be contributing to making you wired and kind of super awake when you're supposed to be winding down and going to sleep. Alcohol is a less obvious one because I think most people think that, or a lot of people think that it can, it makes you sleepy, so it probably helps you go to sleep. But really, so that is true, it can do that, but then halfway through the night it can kind of turn on you and disrupt sleep. So you might notice that like when you drink, you get to sleep really easily, but then you just feel really groggy and kind of grumpy in the morning. And that's because alcohol just really is a big sleep disruptor. So if you can, just really try to avoid it if your migraines are really bad. And then once they're Once they're under control, you can kind of experiment and see like what your limit is with alcohol, and obviously make sure you're hydrated and all that. But I would say if your migraines are at their worst and they're kind of, you know, pretty frequent, just stay away from it. Choose to drink something really relaxing, like a chamomile tea or a lavender tea, to just help you wind down and signal to your body that it's time to chill out. Second tip on daily habit is eat and drink earlier. On the liquid side, you know, you don't if you're an avid water drinker like I am, or if you're drinking tea, like you just want to make sure that you're not drinking a ton of water right before you go to bed, because you don't want your body to have to wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and then, you know, disrupt your sleep just because waking up. And it could take a lot. I know it takes me a long time to go back to sleep if I'm woken up in the middle of the night, because I'm just a naturally wired person. I start thinking about what to do next. So just give yourself the best odds by not drinking a ton before you go to sleep. The eating, especially, you know, this day and age, it's just, we're kind of, after a long day, like eating a lot later. But it's really best to eat 3 or 4 hours before you go to bed. So that might mean kind of just planning your day around that. Maybe you work out before you eat typically, or you work late and then you eat, but maybe it's possible to stop work a little bit earlier, get home, make dinner, and then continue working at home. Same thing with working out, like maybe at least if you can eat a little bit before your meal, and then eat like a small kind of snacks portion after. At least you're not eating this huge meal that's kind of heavy and weighs down and that you have to digest and can disrupt sleep beforehand. So hopefully those are some doable suggestions in terms of the eating and drinking category. Next, and this is such a hard one as I talk into a computer, but just say no to screens in bed, or really in the bedroom. I know this is such a hard one. Screens are everywhere, whether it's a TV or a phone or a tablet. I mean, there's just like a million ways to distract ourselves. But the blue light that the screens emit are, you know, they disrupt the production of melatonin, and melatonin, as you probably know, is what we need to go to sleep. And so I would just say 30 to 60 minutes before bed, just try to shut off the screens, and really try, if you can, I know this is a big ask, but keep the screens out of your room completely. I know my husband wanted to kill me when I said that we had to get rid of our TV in our room. It was a battle, but it really, you know, had some nice side effects. Not only was a distraction out of there and a sleep disruptor, but it's also just created more like wind down time, more time for us to be together. So you might be surprised about, you know, what comes when you take your electronics out of your bedroom and make it kind of like a electronic-free sanctuary. If you're scratching your head and wondering, but like my phone is my alarm clock, I totally hear you, but you know, just go on Amazon or go to your local store and just try to find a old school, you know, digital clock, or even something without a light, and just go, you know, just find something the old-fashioned way and just keep that as your alarm clock. So again, I know I don't, you know, I'm not trying to make light of how hard this one is. I know it's really, really hard, but just keep in mind the screens are not, the light is not doing you any good, and they just can be such a tempting distraction, especially if you wake up in the middle of the night. So again, just try to stay away from this one if you can. The last one is calm your mind, which Alexandra, you brought up this question, and so I have a few tips here, but I'd love to hear your suggestions of how to, because I think this is really the most challenging for the most people. It definitely is for me, as I feel like somehow I have to go through a million to-do lists, and you know, I start thinking about like every little thing possible that I didn't get to think about during the day at night, and it's just totally the wrong time to do it. So if I'm not actively trying to unwind, I could be up for hours. So the first tip I'll say is, if you're mind racer like me, just take a pen and paper and write down what you're thinking, whether it's a to-do list or whether it's like something that's upsetting you. Just really get it down on paper. Out of your, you know, just that simple act of getting it out of your mind and on paper is really, really, really effective. The second thing I was saying, that I would say is, you know, the practice of keeping gratitude and a daily focus on what it is that you're thankful for, as cheesy as that is, like has been proven to not only make you happier, but it can make you sleep better. So I've found a really effective tool, which I have right here. It's called the 5-minute journal. And literally it just has, I'll just open it to a blank page. It's divided into a day section and the night. So you do the day, like this part up here, right when you wake up, and you do this part when you're in bed, right before you go to sleep. And it just asks you some basic questions like, what are you grateful for? What would make today great? And then at night, you'd say, like, what are 3 amazing things that happened today? And how could I have made today even better? And I think this does 2 things. Why the reason I really like it is because, you know, what are you thankful for? Like getting you focused on the positive, especially like, you know, if you were in like a migraine streak of misery, like I was several times in my life, like the longest streak I ever had chronically was 6 months. Sometimes it's really hard to focus on the positive. So if I have an exercise that really forces me to do that, it really gives me some great perspective. So I love it for that reason. And I love it because, you know, what are 3 amazing things that I want to accomplish today? And then if at night you reflect on that, it's like, you know, a part of the reason I think sometimes I'm so wired is because I feel like, oh my God, I didn't have like any time today. But then if I look at my journal and I say like, wow, I accomplished actually the 3 big things that I wanted to today, I feel a lot more, you know, I feel like the day's like a lot more accomplished about the day, and I feel much better about the fact like, okay, maybe I didn't get to everything I wanted, but I got to the 3 big things. So that's really a much more important focus. So I highly recommend it. It's a really, really easy tool. Just Google 5-minute journal. It's a great tool to unwind at the end of the day. Obviously, this is gonna be no surprise that the next tip is meditation. There's obviously tons and tons of resources out there to meditate. You don't need necessarily a tool to do it. I find I need a tool because I just can't really do it on my own because my mind just wanders too much. The best tool I found is this app called Headspace. Literally, they just have, you know, unlimited amounts of, you know, just 10-minute exercises. And I think they have some, maybe it's a paid feature, but they have some specifically for sleep. But really what meditation does is it gets you out of that fight or flight mode, which, every minute of every day, it seems like we're running. And it gets you into that rest and digest mode. So again, to just really unwind. Other quick tips, and then I want to wind up and answer your questions and your comments, is a nice bath, like an Epsom salt bath with lavender essential oils. Like somebody else mentioned essential oils, and it's really great, especially here, that those are soothing smells. Again, you want to sense those signals to your body that it's time to calm down and unwind. So that's a great one to do. And then the last one I would just say is do some light stretching or yoga if you need something a little more active to wind down. So that's it. So it's, again, for the foundational pieces, it's declare your bedtime, establish consistent bed and wake times, create a dark, quiet, optimal space, and last one is learn to say no. And then once you have the foundation established, I would say to really work on implementing good daily habits. And the ones that I mentioned are avoid caffeine and alcohol, eat and drink earlier, just say no to screens, and calm your mind. So hopefully that was helpful, and I'd love to hear from you guys. So let me just look at your 3-year-old comments. Let's see. So Alexandra, I hope that that those tips helped. I would love to, hear if you've tried any of them. Keith, can't shut the old brain off. I know, I hear you. It's really hard, but hopefully, by writing things down or practicing some deep breathing, meditation. Sometimes, like if you really are feeling so wired, like sometimes we overcomplicate it. Just even taking like 5 deep breaths, 10 deep breaths, like, you don't have to use an app, like just really get yourself into that calm state is really, really helpful. So you don't have to overthink these things. Susan, let's see, I actually thought about keeping a reverse planner and write down what I did that day, even if it's just accomplishing the basics. I love that, Susan, because I think sometimes we just overly focus on what we didn't do and we don't realize like all the things that we did. So I think that's a really great suggestion. I'm glad you brought that up. And hopefully it allows you to just unwind, to not only make you feel good about all you did, but unwind and like feel better about going to sleep and having a nice deep sleep. Deborah, what was the name of the app? If you're referring to the meditation app, it was Headspace. So head like your head and space. It's really, really great. And there's a free version and a paid version. The free version is great. So you can definitely test it out. And if you're interested in more of the features, you can upgrade to the paid version, no problem. Amanda, your migraines start at the back of the head and seem to be mostly caused by stress. Yeah, this, like I said in the beginning, stress is just such a huge part of, it's so like deeply interconnected to migraines, and it's a huge part of potentially disrupting your sleep. You know, I don't know. We could talk about it for a million minutes. Unfortunately, we have 5 minutes left in this Facebook Live, but feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email at the bottom if you have any questions about how to tackle the stress. But really, if you guys are suffering from, if you think you're suffering from a lot of sleep disruption, I would say stress is like the #1 area to tackle, and kind of figure out why you're feeling stressed out and see if there's a way that you can address that, whether it's, you know, having to delegate more, whether it's having to get outside help from a therapist or from a trusted friend or family member. But it's really, like, it's such a big topic, I don't even know where to begin with that, but I really hope that you can find, at least with the tips on calming your mind, if through some deep breathing or through writing some things down, or, you know, keeping a gratitude journal, that you can help decrease that stress. So Alexandra, you're going to start tonight with tea and a bath. That's so great. That makes me so excited. But yes, and get that journal to help your mind relax. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I mean, the bath is something, I think nothing is more relaxing than a bath and tea. I don't think, for me, it's something that I can realistically do every night just because it's so time consuming, but I started, and what I haven't been super consistent about it, but I've started to make it like a Sunday night ritual where, like, I just want to start my week in a really calm way. So again, like these things, you know, like anything in life, you don't have to just all of a sudden be like, okay, I have to take all these 8 things and I have to implement them all 100% and be perfect. I think you can start with one and figure out how to implement it in your own way. And so you know, for the bath stuff, like okay, once a week is good enough for me, and that's the realistic way for me to implement it. And so you just kind of have to look at it and personalize it for yourself. Don't worry about and then stress yourself about having to do all of these things at once. Really start, and that's why I divided the tips into 2 separate categories. Kind of start with the foundational pieces, do them one by one if you can, because even if you do one at a time, you know, like declaring your bedtime and striving for that 8 hours of sleep, you know, if you're getting 6 hours of sleep now, and then within a month, you know, every week you're increasing in 15 minutes. So within a month from now, you're sleeping 7 hours a night, and then another month you're sleeping 8 hours a night. That's a huge change and shift for your health by really making tiny changes on a day-to-day basis. So think about it like that. Really break it down for yourself, and it'll be much more manageable that way. Just looking at a few more comments. Amanda, Rosa, you're welcome. Janet, the pain of migraine is unbelievable. Oh, I feel you. I'm so sorry that you're going through that. It's, you know, this is why I just feel so passionately about this. It's just migraine is so complicated, and it causes so much pain to so many people. So yeah, I just want to help as many of you as possible. Olga, why do I get more migraines on the weekends? That's a great question. Without knowing your specific context, but somebody else mentioned this before, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the talk. It's really important that you sleep the same amount every single night. And a lot of us have the tendency to kind of catch up on our sleep and sleep in on the weekends, and that's a major migraine trigger. We really want consistency as much as possible to keep the part of our brain, the hypothalamus, that's kind of, you know, that migraines originate from. We want to keep that part of the brain happy, and consistency is its favorite thing. So it's getting enough sleep, and being consistent about when we go to bed and wake up. I'm coming to the end of my time here. Thank you so, so much. I'm going to write my email. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You guys have a great, great night. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a migraine-free day. Bye-bye.